Nakakagulantang na moment noong Setyembre 12, 2025, exactly 8:47 p.m. Eastern Time, sa live broadcast ng The Late Night Arena, top-rated American sports talk show, when host Derek Morrison, 48 years old, known for sharp tongue and controversial takes, interviewed rising Filipino boxer Eman Bacosa, 32 taong gulang, recent WBC welterweight champion. During segment about international boxing stars, Morrison suddenly interrupted Eman mid-answer about training regimen, smirked, at camera stated loudly, "Can we get a translator? I can barely understand this guy's English, sounds like he's speaking Tagalog with English words thrown in randomly. This is American television, we need proper English." Mocking tone causing studio audience to gasp. Pero what happened next? Eman's response, delivered in flawless, articulate English with devastating wit, would go viral instantly. 48 million views within hours, humiliating Morrison, forcing public apology, revealing ugly truth about racism in American sports media. Introdução. Hand palabras. Mga kaibigan, bago natin buksan ang absolutely explosive story na ito tungkol sa bastos na American host who dared mock Eman Bacosa's English, only to be intellectually destroyed on live television, kailangan kong malaman. Nasaan kayo nanonood ngayon? Taga-Philippines ba? USA kung maraming Filipino community? Canada? Middle East? Europe? Or anywhere else sa mundo? Comment your exact location. At controversial question, tama ba na i-mock ang English ng non-native speakers sa international broadcast? O racist microaggression ba yan disguised as humor? May responsibility ba ang hosts to respect guests regardless of accent? Subscribe now para sa buong shocking kwento ng how Eman defended not just himself, pero entire Filipino community. On notifications. Mag-like, share everywhere. This is about dignity and respect. Ang background ng interview invitation started 3 weeks earlier, late August 2025. When Eman had just successfully defended his WBC welterweight title against Mexican contender Carlos Mendoza in Las Vegas. Dominant 11-round stoppage that showcased his technical evolution under Freddie Roach's guidance. Fight generated significant American media attention because Eman was son of legendary Manny Pacquiao. Pero more importantly, because he was winning fights impressively using intelligent boxing rather than just brawling. American networks wanted him for interviews. The Late Night Arena reached out through Eman's publicist offering primetime slot, 1-hour special featuring extended interview, training footage, highlights from recent fights, opportunity to reach 20 million American viewers. Massive platform for Filipino boxer trying to build crossover appeal. Eman's team was initially hesitant. Derek Morrison had reputation for being confrontational, intentionally provocative. Past interviews included uncomfortable moments with international athletes, questions about immigration status, comments about English proficiency, pattern of behavior that walked line between edgy humor and outright xenophobia. Pero publicist argued, any publicity is good publicity. 20 million viewers. Exposure that money can't buy. Just be prepared for tough questions, Don't take bait if he tries to provoke. Eman agreed with conditions. Questions submitted in advance, no ambush topics, respectful treatment, befitting world champion. Morrison's producers accepted terms, interview scheduled September 12, 8:30 p.m. slot. Taping would be live with small studio audience. Format allowed for spontaneous moments, pero also carried risk of unscripted incidents. Day of taping, Eman arrived at studio in Manhattan approximately 5:00 p.m. for pre-interview preparation, makeup, sound check, met with producers who seemed professional, courteous, reviewed question list again, topics appeared reasonable, career trajectory, training with Freddie Roach, relationship with Father Manny, future opponents, nothing controversial. Eman felt comfortable, warmed up by doing brief practice interview with associate producer. English was clear, accent present, pero not impedi. On communication, associate producer gave thumbs up. You'll do great, just relax, be yourself. American audience will love your story. Reassurance that felt genuine at the time, pero nobody warned him about Morrison's tendency to deviate from script when cameras rolled. to create viral moments through controversy. 8:30 p.m. Show began. Opening segment featured Morrison's monologue joking about week's sports headlines. Transition to first guest. Tonight we have special interview with man who has boxing in his DNA, son of 8-division world champion Manny Pacquiao, current WBC welterweight champion in his own right. Please welcome Eman Bacosa. Enthusiastic applause. Eman walked out wearing sharp suit, waved to audience, sat across from Morrison. Initial exchange was friendly. Morrison asking about recent fight. Eman describing preparation, strategy, Freddie's instructions. Answers were clear, thoughtful. English was perfectly understandable despite Filipino accent. First 10 minutes went smoothly. Audience seemed engaged, interested in his story. Pero around 15-minute mark, atmosphere shifted. Morrison asked about childhood in Philippines before Manny acknowledged him. Sensitive topic pero one Eman had agreed to discuss. Growing up was challenging. My mother raised me alone. We had financial struggles. I didn't know my father was Manny Pacquiao until I was teenager. Even then took years before public acknowledgement. Those experiences shaped my character, taught me resilience, gave me hunger to prove myself not just as Manny's son, Iro as my own fighter. Heartfelt answer delivered in slightly accented English. Grammatically correct, emotionally resonant, audience seemed moved. Pero Morrison's expression changed, smirk appearing. He glanced at camera, looked back at Eman. Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm having trouble understanding your English. Accent is pretty thick, maybe slow down, enunciate more clearly. Comment was unnecessary. Eman's English had been perfectly clear. Morrison was creating issue where none existed. Eman paused, slightly thrown off. I can repeat. I was saying that childhood experiences taught me resilience. Morrison interrupted again. No, I got the words. It's just the delivery. You know what? Let me ask differently. Do you speak English at home or mostly Tagalog? Because your English sounds like direct translation from another language, sentence structure is off. Very Filipino way of speaking. Observation was both inaccurate and condescending. Eman's English had been fluent. Morrison was inventing linguistic problems to belittle him. Studio audience shifted uncomfortably, some recognizing this was inappropriate. Eman maintained composure. I speak both English and Tagalog. Philippines was American colony for 50 years. English is official language, taught in all schools. I've been speaking English since childhood. My accent reflects where I'm from. But communication is clear. You've understood everything I've said. Response was measured, factual, attempted to correct Morrison's implications without escalating. Pero Morrison wasn't backing down. He turned to audience. Folks, can you understand him? Show of hands if you're having trouble with the accent. Scattered uncomfortable laughter. Few hands raised, possibly from people playing along with host. Morrison seized on it. See? It's not just me, Eman buddy. No offense, pero this is American television, prime time. Audiences expect certain standard of English. Maybe we need translator to help smooth things out, make this easier for everyone. Suggestion was deeply insulting, implying Eman couldn't communicate in English on English language show despite having done so successfully for 20 minutes. Implication that Filipino accent equaled incompetence, that American audiences couldn't handle linguistic diversity. Moment crystallized every microaggression international athletes face. Subtle racism disguised as concern for clarity. Eman's jaw tightened. He'd been patient, accommodating, respectful, pero this crossed line. Disrespected. Not just him, pero entire Filipino community. 70 million English-speaking Filipinos worldwide. All immigrants who spoke English with accents. All people told their voices didn't matter unless they sounded American. Decision point arrived. Respond with anger and risk being labeled difficult. Stay silent and accept humiliation, or respond with intelligence that would expose Morrison's ignorance. Eman chose intelligence, leaned forward, looked directly at Morrison when he spoke. His English transformed, accent minimalized, vocabulary elevated, delivery precise. Derek, let me address your concerns about my English proficiency in language that perhaps will meet your exacting standards. I find it fascinating that you question my linguistic capabilities when I've been communicating clearly in English, which happens to be one of 2 official languages of my country. For the entirety of this interview, Your suggestion that my accent somehow impedes understanding reveals more about your limited exposure to international communication than about any deficiency in my expression. The Philippines has one of highest English literacy rates in Asia, 92% proficiency. We provide English language services to American companies precisely because our English is excellent. Your call centers, your customer service, your business process outsourcing, all handled by Filipinos whose English you apparently find substandard when spoken on your show, pero perfectly acceptable when serving your commercial needs. Morrison's smirk faded. Hadn't expected articulate pushback. Eman continued, gaining momentum. Furthermore, your inability or unwillingness to understand accented English despite its grammatical correctness and clear pronunciation says less about my communication skills and more about American provincialism. 75% of English speakers worldwide are non-native speakers. English is global language that belongs to everyone who uses it, not just Americans. My accent is not corruption of proper English, pero reflection of multilingual reality. I speak 3 languages fluently: English, Tagalog, and Bisaya. How many do you speak, Derek? Direct question, Morrison stammered. Just English, but Eman didn't let him finish. Just English on monolingual American television, questioning multilingual guests' proficiency in his second language. Ironic, don't you think? Studio audience erupted in applause. Morrison's face reddened, realized he'd badly miscalculated, tried to recover. Hey, I didn't mean to offend, just trying to make show accessible. Pero Eman wasn't done. Accessible to whom? Americans who've never heard Filipino accent? Perhaps those Americans should expand their media consumption. World is bigger than United States. Boxing is international sport. WBC has champions from Mexico, Philippines, Japan, Kazakhstan, England. Are you going to mock all our accents or just mine? Or is it specifically Filipino accent that troubles you? Because I notice you never questioned Canelo's English despite his accent. Never suggested Lomachenko needed translator. Interesting pattern. Observation landed hard, calling out what everyone was thinking. Morrison's treatment of Eman had racial undertones. Would he have questioned European boxers' English? Probably not. Filipino accent triggered different response. Colonial mentality that Asian accents were less valid, less professional, less worthy of respect. Eman had named it, made it visible, impossible to ignore. Production staff looked panicked. This was live television, couldn't be edited, couldn't be walked back. Damage was happening in real time. Morrison tried switching topics. Okay, let's move on. Talk about your upcoming fights. Pero Eman cut him off. No, let's not move on, you racing issue of language. Let's fully explore it. You owe explanation not just to me, pero to every Filipino watching, every immigrant watching, every person who's been told their accent makes them less intelligent, less worthy, less American. What exactly did you mean by suggesting I need translator? Explain your reasoning. Silence hung heavy. Morrison had no good answer. Attempted deflection. Look, it was joke, bit of humor, didn't mean anything by it. Weak excuse, Eman responded. Humor punches up, not down. World champion appearing on your show is not punching up. Mocking guest's accent is not humor, it's bullying. It's using platform to diminish someone. You wouldn't joke about race, religion, disability, pero somehow accent is acceptable target. Language discrimination is still discrimination. I reject premise that my English needs improvement to meet your standards. My English is excellent. My accent is mine, reflects my identity, my culture, my journey. I'm not ashamed of it. You should be ashamed of mocking it. Ano kaya ang gagawin ng show management? Papahinto ba ang interview? Gancho Bloco 1. Producer's voice suddenly crackled through Morrison's earpiece. Visible panic in his eyes as he received instructions, tried to salvage situation. Eman, you're absolutely right. I apologize. That was inappropriate. I clearly touched nerve. Didn't realize how offensive comment would be. Forced apology delivered under duress, pero damage was done. Eman nodded curtly. Accepted, pero Derek, this isn't just about touching nerve. It's about pattern of disrespect international athlete. Sindur, you have platform. 20 million viewers. You have responsibility to use it better. Morrison scrambled to continue interview, but remaining 30 minutes were awkward, tense, audience clearly sympathetic to Eman. Social media was already exploding with clips of exchange. Respect Eman trending. Video of his response going viral, adding full consequences for Morrison, and the show would unfold over next 72 hours in ways nobody anticipated. Block 02, 1,000 palavras. Within minutes of Eman's devastating response, social media erupted. Clip of exchange was shared thousands of times across Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Overwhelming majority of comments supported Eman, praised his articulate defense, condemned Morrison's behavior. Hashtags: Respect Eman, Filipino pride, Stop accent discrimination all trended simultaneously. Filipino community particularly activated. Celebrities, politicians, athletes all sharing clip with supportive messages. Vice President Sara Duterte tweeted, "Proud of Eman Bacosa for eloquently defending not just himself, but our entire Filipino nation. Our English is world-class. Our dignity is non-negotiable." Tweet received 500,000 likes within hour, amplifying story beyond sports into cultural moment. American response was mixed, pero largely sympathetic to Eman. Progressive commentators immediately called out Morrison's racism. Sports Illustrated published op-ed within hours, titled, "Derek Morrison's Attack on Eman Bacosa Reveals Ugly Truth About Sports Media." Xenophobia, article detailed pattern of similar incidents involving international athletes, argued Morrison's behavior reflected broader industry problem. Mainstream outlets like ESPN, CNN, and major newspapers picked up story by Nextmo. Arning, media criticism was withering. Morrison had miscalculated badly, expected audience to laugh along with his mocking, instead faced unified condemnation. His reputation took massive hit overnight. The late-night arenas network, Sportsmax Television, went into crisis management mode. Executives held emergency meeting 11:00 p.m. same night. Debate was intense. Some argued Morrison should be immediately suspended. Others worried that would validate criticism, make network appear reactive. Initial response was cautious statement released midnight. Sportsmax Television values diversity and respect. We are reviewing tonight's episode and will address any concerns appropriately. Non-committal LE. Anguish that satisfied nobody. Critics demanded stronger action. Supporters of Eman wanted Morrison fired. Filipino community organized. Philippine ambassador to U.S. issued statement. We expect full apology not just to Eman Bacosa, pero to all Filipino Americans and Philippine citizens. Language discrimination is unacceptable. Diplomatic pressure adding weight. By morning of September 13th, situation had intensified. Eman's interview clip had 48 million views across platforms. Mainstream morning shows were discussing incident. Good Morning America interviewed Filipino-American linguist who explained, Filipino English is legitimate variety with its own rules and norms, calling it deficient because it differs from American English's linguistic colonialism. Eman's response was masterclass in defending linguistic dignity, academic credibility supporting Eman's position. Derek Morrison woke up to find himself centerpiece of national conversation about racism, xenophobia, American exceptionalism, topics he'd never intended to address. Morrison attempted to control damage through Twitter, posted thread 9 Rose AM. Reflecting on last night's interview, I recognize my comments about Eman's English were inappropriate and hurtful. I apologize to Eman, Filipino community, and anyone offended. It was poor attempt at humor that missed mark badly. I'm committed to learning from this, doing better. Apology was criticized as insufficient, performative, lacking genuine understanding. Responses were brutal. You're only sorry you got called out. This isn't about being offended, it's about being disrespected. Your apology doesn't mention racism or acknowledge pattern. Morrison's attempt at redemption was failing. Social media court had rendered verdict. He was guilty. Penalty was still being determined. Sportsmax Television faced advertiser pressure. 3 major sponsors, Nike, Gatorade, and Modelo, released statements expressing concern, threatening to pull advertising if network didn't take stronger action. Financial stakes suddenly very high. Morrison's show generated approximately $80 million annually in ad revenue. Losing major sponsors would be catastrophic. Network could no longer afford cautious approach. 3 p.m. September 13th, network president Marcus Webb held press conference. After the IDU, or a review of Thursday night's episode, we have decided Derek Morrison will be suspended without pay for 4 weeks. He will undergo mandatory diversity and sensitivity training. We are implementing new protocols for all on-air talent regarding respectful treatment of guests, particularly international guests. We apologize to Eman Bacosa and Filipino community for platform being used to perpetuate harmful stereotypes. Suspension was significant, pero many felt insufficient. Calls for permanency. Determination continued. Filipino-American organizations demanded meeting with network executives. Petition on change.org titled, "Fire Derek Morrison for Racist Comments," gathered 800,000 signatures in 3 days. Pressure was relentless. Morrison's career hung in balance. Other networks quietly distanced themselves, future employment prospects dimming. Reputation as edgy host had transformed into reputation as liability. Xenophobe. Career-ending label in increasingly diverse media landscape. For Eman, incident became defining moment. He hadn't sought controversy, just defended his dignity. Pero response catapulted him beyond boxing into broader cultural relevance. He was invited to speak at Filipino-American Leadership Summit in San Francisco, keynote address September 20th, spoke to 3,000 attendees about identity, pride, resistance to discrimination. Speech was powerful, personal, transcended boxing. They try to make us small, make us apologize for who we are, where we're from, how we speak. We must refuse. Our accents are not deficiencies, they are evidence of our journeys, our multilingualism, our richness. When someone mocks your accent, they reveal their poverty of understanding, their inability to see beyond their narrow experience. We are champions not despite our backgrounds, but because of them. Standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Eman had become voice for community, advocate for dignity. His boxing credentials were impressive, pero his willingness to speak truth, to power, defend Filipino identity on hostile platform, that resonated deeper. He received offers to write op-eds, appear on talk shows, participate in documentary about immigrant athletes. Opportunities extended far beyond sports. His profile elevated, marketability increased. Endorsement deals from Filipino brands followed, even American brands who valued multicultural appeal. Morrison's attempt to diminish him had backfired spectacularly, made Eman bigger, stronger, more influential. Personal cost was real, Eman admitted in later interview. That moment was difficult. I felt humiliated on live television, questioned whether I belonged, whether my English was good enough. Imposter syndrome kicked in, took days to process, talked to family, friends, therapist, realized I had done nothing wrong. Problem was not my English, pero his attitude. Took strength to respond how I did, not with anger, pero with intelligence. Wanted to educate, not just attack. Wanted to represent community. Well, hope I did. Vulnerability was touching. Eman was not impervious to hurt, not superhuman, just human being defending himself best way he knew how. Dignity intact, pride preserved. Investigation revealed Morrison had history of similar comments. Previous guests complained about condescending treatment, subtle digs at accents, cultural backgrounds. Network had ignored complaints, enabled behavior. Eman's incident was not isolated, pero pattern. Difference was, Eman fought back publicly, forced accountability. Other victims came forward sharing their experiences. Pattern of discrimination became undeniable. Network faced reckoning. Several producers were let go. Diversity tray. Ning was mandated for all staff. Guest relations protocols were revised. Independent monitors were assigned to live shows. Structural changes implemented to prevent future incidents. Eman's stand had catalyzed institutional reform. 4 weeks later, Morrison returned from suspension October 11th. First show back included 5-minute direct-to-camera apology. I want to address September 12th incident. I was wrong. Comments about Eman Bacosa's English were rooted in ignorance, cultural insensitivity, perhaps unconscious bias I need to confront. I've spent past month in training, reflection, consultation with Filipino community leaders. I understand now that linguistic diversity is strength, not weakness, that accents represent identities worth respecting. I apologize again to Eman, to Filipino community, to anyone I've hurt through past comments. I'm committed to change, to using platform more responsibly. Apology seemed more genuine, substantive. Better damage to reputation was permanent. Ratings for his show dropped 30%, never recovered. Morrison's influence waned, industry moved on. For Eman, validation came from unexpected source. Manny Pacquiao had been following incident closely, was asked about it during press conference for upcoming exhibition. I'm incredibly proud of Eman, how he handled disrespect with class, intelligence, dignity. He represented Philippines beautifully, defended our people eloquently. That takes courage, that takes character. He's champion in ring and champion outside ring. As father, I couldn't be prouder. Rare public praise from Manny meant everything to Eman. Affirmation from father who had once not acknowledged him. Full circle moment. Relationship healing through shared experience of defending Filipino identity against American prejudice. Ano ang lasting impact ng incident sa American sports media? Gancho Bloco 2. Incident sparked broader conversation in sports media about treatment of international athletes. Several major publications launched internal reviews of coverage. ESPN created position of diversity and inclusion editor specifically for sports coverage, tasked with ensuring respectful representation of international athletes. Linguistic diversity celebrated, not mocked. Other networks followed suit. Industry standards shifted. Morrison's career became cautionary tale. What not to do, how not to treat guests. Pero more importantly, Eman became symbol. Proof that fighting back works, that dignity can be defended, that intelligence defeats ignorance. Atang ripple effects would continue for years, changing how Filipino athletes and all international athletes were treated in American media landscape. Bloco 3, 1,000 palabras plus conclusion. 6 months after incident, March 2026, Eman was invited back to American television, this time on 60 Minutes, CBS's prestigious news magazine, interview with Anderson Cooper. Format completely different from Morrison's show. Serious journalism, respectful treatment. Cooper open segment. 6 months ago, boxer Eman Bacosa became unlikely voice against linguistic discrimination. His confrontation with sports host Derek Morrison went viral. Sparked national conversation. Tonight, we sit down with man who defended not just himself, pero millions who speak English with accents. Eman, thank you for being here, Tone said immediately. Respect established. Eman relaxed, smiled. Thanks for having me, Anderson. Happy to be here. Interview covered his boxing career, training with Freddie Roach, relationship with Father Manny, pero focused heavily on Morrison incident and its aftermath. Cooper asked, when Morrison suggested you needed translator, what went through your mind in that moment? Eman reflected. Initial feeling was shame, internalized message that maybe my English wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't belong on American television, pero then anger kicked in, healthy anger, righteous anger, realized he was wrong, I was being disrespected for no legitimate reason. My English is fine, my accent is part of who I am. I decided in that split second I would not accept his framing, would not let him diminish me or my community. So I responded, used his own language against him, owed him I could speak proper English he claimed to value, while simultaneously making point that his standards were arbitrary, culturally biased. Cooper followed up. Your response was remarkably articulate, composed. Was that planned or spontaneous? Eman laughed. Completely spontaneous. I had prepared for tough questions about boxing, training, personal life. Pero nobody prepared me for host mocking my accent on live television. Response came from years of experiencing microaggressions, being underestimated because of how I speak. Accumulation of frustration that finally found outlet. I'm grateful it happened to me. Someone with platform to fight back, rather than to immigrant worker or student who might not have same resources, same suppo. RT, I could take the hit. Absorb the disrespect, transform it into teaching moment. Interview segment included reactions from Filipino community. Anderson Cooper had traveled to Manila, interviewed people on streets about incident. Overwhelming pride in Eman's response, sense that he had defended national honor. One elderly woman said, "We Filipinos speak excellent English. We were colonized by America. They imposed their language on us. Now they mock how we speak it." Eman showed them we are not inferior, our English is valid. Sentiment echoed repeatedly. Cooper's report contextualized incident within history of colonialism, American imperialism in Philippines, ongoing tension between cultural pride and internalized colonial mentality, deeper analysis than typical sports story, elevated Eman's stand to historical significance. 60 Minutes piece also included interview with linguistics professor from UCLA, Dr. Patricia Santos, Filipino-American scholar. What Eman did was linguistically assert legitimacy of Philippine English. There are multiple varieties of English globally. Philippine English is recognized variety with its own grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation patterns. It is not broken American English. It is distinct, legitimate form. Morrison's mockery revealed American linguistic imperialism, assumption that only American English is correct. Eman's response was both personal defense and scholarly argument. He articulated what linguists have been saying for decades: English belongs to everyone who speaks it. Segment concluded with Cooper asking Eman about lasting impact. Has anything really changed, or was this just viral moment that faded? Eman considered carefully. Some things have changed. Filipino athletes tell me they feel more confident speaking English on American platforms. International athletes in other sports reference incident as example of how to stand up for yourself. Media outlets are more conscious about respecting linguistic diversity, pero deeper structural changes take time. Morrison is still employed despite suspension. Other hosts still make similar comments, just more carefully worded. Real change requires sustained effort, not just one viral moment. That's why I continue speaking about this, doing interviews like this, keeping conversation alive. Pressure creates change. We can't let up. Interview ended with footage of Eman's recent title defense, dominant performance against tough challenger. Commentary noting his boxing skill had not diminished despite distractions from media controversy. If anything, he seemed sharper, more focused, channeling anger into athletic excellence. Cooper's voiceover. Eman Bacosa proves you can be champion in multiple arenas. In ring, where he wins with fists. Outside ring, where he wins with words. His legacy may ultimately be less about boxing titles and more about dignity defended. Voice given to voiceless. Example set for all who refuse to be diminished. Powerful conclusion. 60 Minutes piece reached 30 million viewers, even larger audience than Morrison's show. Pero message was completely different, respectful, substantive, journalistic rather than exploitative. Industry impact was measurable. Journalism schools began teaching Morrison incident as case study. What not to do, how linguistic discrimination manifests in media, how to respectfully interview international subjects. Sports journalism ethics textbook published 2027 included full chapter analyzing incident, assigned to students nationwide. Eman's response was studied alongside other moments of athletes using platforms for social justice, compared to Muhammad Ali's political stands. Colin Kaeper, Knicks protest, Billie Jean King's advocacy, company of giants, recognition that sports transcends games when athletes speak truth. For Derek Morrison personally, career never recovered. Ratings decline continued. Network chose not to renew his contract when it expired December 2026. He attempted to rebrand as podcast host, limited success, reputation as racist following him. Interviews dried up, relevance faded. Last public statement about incident came in 2027 podcast appearance. I made mistake, paid price, career effectively over. Pero I learned something. You can't treat people that way. Disrespect them for who they are. Where they're from, it catches up to you. I wish I could take it back. I can't. I live with consequences. Acknowledgement came too late. Damage was done. Cautionary tale was complete. Eman meanwhile continued thriving. Defended title 3 more times through 2027, each defense more impressive than last. Announced retirement from boxing 2028 at age 35. Undefeated record 22-0 with 18 knockouts. WBC welterweight champion for 3 years. Legacy secure. Pero boxing was not his only legacy. He leveraged fame into advocacy work. Founded Filipino Athletes Advocacy Foundation, nonprofit providing support for Filipino boxers, basketball players, other athletes competing internationally. Organization offered English communication coaching not to change accents pero to build confidence. Legal support for athletes facing discrimination. Mentorship connecting young Filipino athletes with established stars. Filling gap that existed. Creating infrastructure of support. He also became regular speaker at colleges, universities, discussing identity, immigration, linguistic justice, using personal story to educate, inspire. Students responded enthusiastically, seeing him as authentic voice, someone who lived experience he discussed, not academic theorizing pero real-world navigation of discrimination. His TED Talk, Your Accent is Your Superpower, delivered 2029, received 12 million views, became required viewing in ESL programs worldwide, message that linguisti, see diversity strengthens rather than weakens communication, that accents carry history, identity, value, that assimilation is not goal pero mutual understanding, acceptance, respect, personal life flourished, married longtime girlfriend Maria Santos 2028, beautiful ceremony in Cebu attended by boxing community, Filipino celebrities, political figures. Manny Pacquiao walked him down aisle alongside biological mother Rowena. Symbolic moment of family unity, acceptance, love. Couple had first child 2029, daughter named Sophia after grandmother. Eman was present father, devoted husband, balanced public prominence with private family time, values his upbringing had instilled. Importance of family above all else, success meaning nothing without loved ones to share it. Reflecting on Morrison incident in 2030 interview for Filipino magazine, 5 years after event, Eman said, "That 9-minute exchange changed my life, gave me purpose beyond boxing, showed me power of speaking up, defending yourself, defending your community. I could have stayed silent, accepted disrespect, moved on, pero silence enables oppression. Speaking up creates possibility of change. I'm grateful I had courage in that moment, grateful for support afterward, grateful it sparked movement. Bigger than me. Filipino pride, linguistic justice, human dignity. These things matter. They're worth fighting for, not with fists, pero with words, with intelligence, with refusal to accept less than we deserve." Legacy of that September night endured, became reference point. Eman moment entered lexicon describing instances when someone eloquently defends themselves against discrimination. Teachers encourage students to study his response as example of effective advocacy, rhetorical skill, emotional intelligence. Morrison's mockery intended to diminish ended up elevating. His disrespect intended to silence ended up amplifying. Poetic justice, ultimate victory. Eman Bacosa. The boxer became Eman Bacosa, the advocate, champion of dignity, defender of identity, voice for voiceless, proving that sometimes most important fights happen outside ring, that words can be as powerful as punches, that Filipino pride is not arrogance pero rightful recognition of worth, contribution, excellence, at English belongs to all who speak it regardless of accent. That respect is not privilege pero right. That standing up changes everything. Exactly what happened that night. Exactly what continues to resonate. Exactly why his name endures not just in boxing record books pero in hearts of millions who saw themselves in his struggle, heard themselves in his words, felt vindicated by his victory, complete, total, permanent.